into our discussion on improving your performance. How do you improve your performance? How do you improve your team's performance? And we looked at the model where we discussed the whole idea of effect. How do you know that you're not performing, or your team is not performing, or your team member is not performing at the level that they should? And then we looked at, or we're looking at the whole idea of the cause. What's causing that? And we discussed the whole concept of we got to dig below the surface if we want to understand cause, because it is normally hidden. It is normally something that is not clear because we see the results, but what we don't see is why we are seeing those results. So today I want to kind of share with you a few examples from my experience in terms of underperformance or lack of performance, or performance that wasn't to the standard or to the level I was expecting. And I'm going to use me as an example in a couple of the instances, and I'm going to use an example of somebody who I worked with or managed, so you can actually see the difference and what could cause the issue of underperformance. And what I want you to do is to give me some feedback. I'm going to be checking the chat, so share with me any questions you have, and I'm going to try and answer them, if not in this session, but in my other live sessions tomorrow or next week. So, as we continue the conversation, I want to kind of share with you a story. So for example, I found myself after working in engineering for 10 years, looking to get out of engineering. And I then applied for a job in sales and marketing. Actually, I kind of approached the sales and marketing manager and asked if he would be interested in having an engineer in sales and marketing, because we were an engineering company. And he said, that's something I always wanted, but the GMs in the past have not given that to me. So again, it was me being proactive because I was losing interest in engineering. And at that time, people thought I was crazy because it was an engineering company, and people who got promoted or became chief executives or general managers at the time were predominantly either accountants or engineers. So for me to suggest I want to go to sales and marketing was a little bit crazy. But I knew that my heart, my passion wasn't in engineering, even though I was an engineer and trained, but I really wasn't passionate about it. So I looked to shift, and maybe about a month, 2 months later, he then approached me and said, look, if we had this role, would you be interested? And to cut a long story short, I moved into sales and marketing. Now, coming out of engineering, back in that day, I had very little knowledge of Excel. I had very little knowledge of PowerPoint. And therefore, the whole idea of business cases, the whole idea of spreadsheets and spreadsheet models were foreign to me. So I got into sales and marketing, and I began having some discussions with my boss at the time, or my new boss actually, because I transitioned bosses. We were looking at a business case for mobile, which was interesting. Because when I moved into sales and marketing, Dominic at the time did not have internet service. So you can imagine, those of you today, you cannot imagine no internet service, right? So I was responsible I was the product manager responsible for bringing internet to Dominica way back in we actually launched it the month my daughter was born, which was in 1995. And when I moved into sales and marketing, I had no concept of spreadsheets. And therefore, I could not perform at my best. So it wasn't that I wasn't interested in performing, or I didn't want to perform, but I didn't have the knowledge and skills to perform. Now here is where a good manager, a good leader, begin to engage you to understand what is happening. And my manager at the time began to engage me in, I want you to do this business case, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to start it for you. So he started the spreadsheet model. So Robert, thanks man, appreciate that, Robert Chase. And when he did that, I then went into the spreadsheet model, and I began to seek to understand how the spreadsheets were nested. I began to again, I wanted to improve two things. I wanted to improve my knowledge, because I had the right attitude, I wanted to learn, but I had to improve my knowledge and I had to improve my skill. So I had to get to know about Excel, know how Excel functioned, but I also needed to take the time to be able to do it. So knowledge, skill. And that's why I was saying to you yesterday, if you are interested in helping people grow, helping people develop, you must be willing to take the time to first assess what is the issue. Why are they not performing? Is it an attitude issue in terms of they don't want to? Is it a skill issue? Is it a knowledge issue? So ASK, like I said yesterday, attitude, skills, knowledge. You want to identify what is the cause. You want to identify mindset and perspective. So for me, I had to dig into, because I had to build two things. Attitude was there, I wanted to learn, but I had to build my knowledge and I had to build my skill. So sometimes you have people who are not performing at the level that they need to. And sometimes not because they don't want to, it's because they're not able to, they don't know how, and it is your responsibility to figure it out. Now, here's something that always triggers me, or this is something I always discuss with clients that I coach them and executives, in that we think that everybody's like us. Let me explain that a little bit. Because I find something simple and it comes naturally to me, I have the perception that it's the same for everyone. And therefore, when I communicate to someone about a particular thing, in actual fact, I hold back about 30 to 40% of the information that would be useful to them. Because for me, these things are standard and natural, and I know it. So I want you to think about your particular situation, or a situation where you have a team member, a colleague who is struggling with a particular area, and you feel that you've explained it sufficiently. You feel there's no way he or she doesn't understand this. I have explained this as clear as I could, and he or she must understand. You see, you would understand because you have a background of knowledge and experience that you bring with you to the table. They don't. I'll give you another example. When I first moved into my own business, coming out of the corporate realm, I remember giving my secretary a set of numbers to pull together into a spreadsheet. And I just said to her, just put into a spreadsheet for me. And when she came back, I was like, what's this? What are you? It did not make any sense to me. Because in my mind, going back to my corporate experience, the people I would have dealt with had that experience, had that background, had that knowledge, and knew exactly how to lay that spreadsheet out. I at first really got irritated, and then I began to recognize she didn't understand, even though it was very clear to me. So can you pause and think for a moment? Is there someone you've been trying to help? Someone you've been trying to improve their performance, but you just can't seem to make progress? Step back. Have you taken the time to understand their background? Have you taken time to understand their attitude, their qualities, their triggers? Have you taken time to understand their knowledge base and their skills base? Because our backgrounds speak into the skills and experience that we have. And we take it for granted because we have it. It's part of us. And when I transitioned from Dominica to Silicon Valley in California, I had another challenge. I then met gentlemen from Hong Kong, from the US, from the UK, from Australia, Upton Australia at the time that Cable Wireless ran these companies. And they were, in my view, much more experienced than I was. When I looked at the job description as business development manager in Silicon Valley, I was scared. I mean, it frightened the living daylights out of me because there's no way I felt I could perform that role. Coming out of an engineering, spending, I think, 1.5 years, 2 years in sales and marketing, and then jumping into the technology capital of the world at the time, Silicon Valley, and then having to produce products and services that would be useful to the rest of the business. And that threw me off. And again, attitude was right. And I was asked to do a feasibility study for a combined, and those of you who are in this technological age will wonder, what in heaven's name are you talking about? A combined pager payphone service. Because at the time we had countries like Jamaica, Trinidad, who had a large percentage of their population that didn't have fixed telephone service. So we were creating something called Reach One, which had a combined pager, voicemail, payphone service where you could page someone. You would then, if they're close to a payphone, they would call into the system and you'd actually connect a live conversation on the road. Now, this seems crazy now with mobile, but at the time, this was a fantastic service that would help, a lot of communities in Jamaica and Trinidad predominantly, which were the markets that we controlled. So I was then asked to do a feasibility study. Can I tell you a secret? I had no idea what a feasibility study was. I've never heard the term before. So guess what? I had to improve my knowledge, I had to improve my skill. So what I'm saying to you is that there are some people who have the natural propensity and the ability and the drive to seek out that which they need. And there are other people in your organization, your team, that you need to help seek out that information and knowledge and that skill, because they don't have that same propensity. Now, you can criticize, you can complain, but it's much more expensive hiring new people than developing the people you have. So take some time and look at your team. Look at the people who report to you. Look at the people who are in your organization and ask yourself a question. Is it knowledge? Is it attitude? Is it skill? And then dig in a bit further to understand what specific elements of knowledge and skill development is required for an individual. You see, too many times we have a desire to get people to perform. But to do that requires work. Another example, I worked with a gentleman who very experienced, very knowledgeable in certain aspects of the business, but struggled in other parts. Now, coming in, the individual thought, I know it, because again, they had experience. This wasn't the issue, but there were specific deficiencies with that individual. Unfortunately, nobody had had that conversation with the individual before. So when I started having the conversation, the response was, you don't like me. The response was, I've been doing this all along, and in actual fact, I've been doing well with it. So that's the danger we as managers face if we don't have honest conversations about performance. If we're not willing to do the analysis on the effect side and then have the conversation on the cause side. So I hope these experiences today will kind of help you put in context the whole idea of you need knowledge and skill, but you need attitude and behavior. And secondly, sometimes people having experience, having been in a system for a while, with no one having guided them down particular paths. Now, it's not that they weren't performing, it's that they weren't performing at the level that they could or can. So it's really you to identify the level of performance expected and then be able to identify what the cause is to be in a position that you are able to help that individual grow, help that individual change. So let me summarize. And I'm going to go back to the model in summarizing, right? Because to me, the overall model helps us understand that it's a process. It's not something that just happens. It's something that's going to take time. It's something that's going to require you and I to do some work. So let me encourage you to take the time. Let me encourage you to really be in a place where you are interested in people development, because it's going to save you a lot of money. You see, some of these things are more difficult to measure, but the cost of new employees compared to the cost of developing your employees is something you need to take the time to explore, and you need to take the time to help them grow, to help them develop, to help them change, because they're not you, and the things that come easy to you may not come easy to them. And if you are interested in your organization, your organizational development, and people development. Now, we keep saying that people are most important asset or most valuable asset. We keep saying that. If they are, be willing to take the time to nurture them, to develop them, to grow them. That's going to require work from you. That's going to require work from me. That's going to require work from every single person who have people reporting to them, who are responsible for helping sure that people perform, people do well, and people are fulfilled in their jobs. Again, Coach Ian Beeson, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to your feedback. I look forward to hearing from you. And if you're interested in developing your own personal and performance, join me at Dare to Dream 2021. Looking forward to seeing you. Take care, stay safe, be blessed.